Hey guys and gals, it's Tripl-L, and now we're here to talk about Attack on Titan Season 2, Episode 1, or as it's officially being called, Episode 26, the continuation to the Attack on Titan anime. Hello, welcome. We're doing a new series on the channel. Pretty happy. Attack on Titan. Let's go, let's talk about it. This is a pretty fun series overall. So this is how the structure for these videos is going to work out for now. I don't know if I'll change next week or the week after, but here's the general idea. We're going to start off, this is going to be a top moment video. So because I have read the manga, I am very aware of what happens coming up in the season. I'm very aware of all the things that could possibly go down. So unfortunately, I don't want to spoil that for any of the new viewers or the anime only viewers. So instead, I really can't talk about what I speculate could happen in the future because I probably know what's going to happen in the future. No, instead, we're going to talk about the episode. We're going to start off with giving just a general overview of how the episode works for the regular viewer, in my opinion. And then we're going to talk about the moments that are really important in the episode, usually 5. And from there, it's just pretty much talking about a pretty awesome episode or a pretty awesome series. So guys, let's just get right into it. Let's start off. So the basics of this episode, first episodes of already kind of running series, they're very important, and it sets the tone for what the creators are expecting in terms of the audience that's going to watch this. Now, this episode, you have no business watching this episode if you are not a follower of the Attack on Titan anime. You should not be going into this anime at all. Go back to the first episode, watch the first episode from the first season. That's just how this anime is structured. And it's actually very interesting because when you have this episode, you compare it to the other series that's returning this season, My Hero Academia, and you compare these two episodes, one series is way more new viewer friendly than the other. Attack on Titan does not care about new viewers. This is just hit the ground running. You have no business watching this series if you do not know what has happened earlier on in the season. A really big contrast to My Hero Academia, because My Hero Academia's structure was worked so that it could fill in new viewers. This no. This continuation, this is for the fans. You legitimately, when you see that number 26 as the episode number, that's telling you should really go back and check out the first season. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because this is really good. This sets up the standard for what you should hold this episode to, and ultimately it might be the better standard to hold first episodes to when it comes to returning series, because this episode assumes that the viewer is smart enough, or the viewer cares enough about the series to remember the big details. And so it rewards a viewer for coming back in and being a fan of the series. Imagine how much more annoying this episode could have been if we had flashbacks or throwaway lines that were only there to remind us of some key elements of the previous season. Like really, the little I guess not flashback, the little recap that we had at the beginning, that was totally fine. That was all we needed. We didn't need anything beyond that. Again, it's not very friendly to absolute new viewers, but again, you have no business watching this if you want to get into the series. You have to go back and see the first season at least. Anyway, not the point. Actually, no, that was the point. Moving on, just in general, because the episode came in and it gave us this tone of, yeah, we're just hitting the ground running. It's just, we just get more new information instead of having to go through a recap or just have half of the episode be flashbacks to what characters were doing last season. We don't need that. So overall, it makes this episode just flow really well. The pacing is good enough, and it's just getting us back into the groove of things. I was really wondering whether or not there was going to be that terror shot, because the terror shot in Attack on Titan is really important, because this is what tells viewers like, this is a pretty shitty situation. And thankfully, this episode was able to deliver it, and it was able to deliver it on its own terms, which is really all that you could ever hope for when it comes to an adaptation. I do not think that the death scene that was featured in this episode was that drawn out in the original manga, and thankfully my memory of the original manga is so compromised at this point that some of this stuff is pretty interesting to me. But the creators saw that moment and they capitalized on it, because they know that what really draws people into Attack on Titan is the utter despair that people will have the moment things get shitty. So overall, I really appreciate the tone of this episode. And in terms of the animation and the art quality, Attack on Titan, the art quality is superb. That's just a fundamental fact of this production. So, you could probably find animation flubs anywhere, but the thing is, Attack on Titan maintains such an integrity to artistic quality that it's really overlookable. You can really just go into this episode and you can expect to have a beautiful episode the majority of times. And it's also very atmospheric production, which does set it above and beyond a lot of the other series that are going on this season. Okay, so that was the general talk about the episode. Now we're just going to get into the standout moments and the moments that are really worth talking about. And the first one we're going to talk about specifically is the opening and then the ending. I'm just doing this because it's the first episode, and one thing that I really enjoy about new series is seeing the openings, because man, like, come on, that's the thing that gets you pumped up for what's going on. So the opening is actually really interesting. The visuals are whatever, that's standard Attack on Titan. They have their setup, they have the history, they have a lot of flashes of characters, and then they have people going in to fight the Titans, and you get that really nice continuous shot in towards the end of the opening. So it follows the formula really well. But the music itself, and this is something that extends to the episode as well, because the ambient music in the episode is just really good. It really gets you into the mood, and it really kind of, like, there's a track in the fight scene that just distorts a bit, and it just really shows you, or like it gives you the feeling of how abnormal the Titans are, and it really works well. But back to the music. That opening is so hard to describe, because if I were to describe it, I say like it mixes tones of the first two openings. Because when you start at the beginning, the first couple of notes sounds just like the first opening, and then it kind of goes into its own thing. And the thing, if I was to try to describe it, it's like it constantly builds up and it feels like it's about to reward you with a chorus, but no, it just goes back and just keeps building up, and the intensity just keeps getting up to a point, and then it just keeps going down. Halfway through the opening, once it like reaches that intensity again, it switches gears kind of, and that's when you start hearing the choral voices, like the chorus in the background, and it starts having a tone of the second opening. Like it starts having that triumphant kind of battle anthem going on, and that's the part where like the action really ramps up. So by the half of the opening, you have a music that's gone from just the build up at the beginning, and now it's just full on just a battle anthem. Be like, guys, go, go, go. This is a war. There is no stopping here. We are just gonna keep going. And overall, the second opening is still my favorite opening when it comes to the music, but this one was a really interesting one. I really like the sound, and I like what I perceived as the mix of the first two openings. Overall, pretty good. The ending, however, is the most disturbing thing. Between the animation style that they use, between the iconography that was going on in that ending, and man, if you're a follower of the manga, you should be really excited about that ending, because like it's giving us a lot of little details that's really rewarding followers of the manga. But not the point. The ending music is just very uncomfortable when you like sit down and you watch it, and it's like it's distorted, it's kind of quieter, it's just really offsetting, and at that point, it's just, oh man. And the thing is, like, it ends off with that gruesome death, and then when you go into that ending, it's like, this doesn't make me feel any better. Like, oh shit, man, that sucked. But yeah, overall, I think both the opening and the ending accomplish what they are doing in terms of the tone of the series. In terms of the music, however, if I was to like stand alone, I don't particularly enjoy it. Actually, I appreciate it, but it's not my favorite kind of music, or it's not my favorite song for the Attack on Titan series. Moving on, let's go into the next moment, and now we're going to talk about plot moments. One of the big stand-up moments is the Titan in the wall, the follow-up that we as viewers got for that particular segment. And the standout moment within that scene is really Hange interrogating the pastor. So let's all take a second to appreciate that. Thankfully, it looks like this plot line of the Titan in the wall, it looks like we're not going to be left dry. Like, we have the pastor with us, so the pastor is definitely going to be our key into finding out what's going to happen. He's the one that tells us to not let the Titan get any sunlight, because we did see the Titan move the eye. So it's cool, that whole little sequence and interrogation. I was really hoping that she would just let go of him and release him and just give him the scare of his life, but she did it. and whatever. But it's at least good that it does seem that the episode is setting up so that we will find out relatively soon about something about the walls, because we do see that the pastor is in tow in the preview for the next episode. So I'm fingers crossed, really. I hope that we're going to find out the information that we need to talk about the Titans in the wall relatively soon. Hange, though, let's talk about her character, because she said something really interesting in that particular segment, and that was that she hasn't been this excited since the first time she went out beyond the walls. And that's just really speaking to the explorer or the researcher in her character, right? Like, knowing that, or her fathoming the possibility that all the walls are made of Titans, that's like opening up a whole new playing field for her. Like, why? The question of why did that happen? That's so interesting. So when she talks about comparing the feeling to her the first time she went on expedition, it's really just comparing the feeling of awe and wonder and the possibility that exists outside of the walls or within the walls, as now is the case. So I think that particular segment really talks about what she is as a person or as a character, just what she really cares about. And ultimately it's just finding out more stuff, right? Like, she's a character that's really driven by experimentation and empirical kind of experience. So moving on, next moment we're going to talk about the moment we find out that Titans have somehow breached one of the inner walls. So this is a very scary moment. We're coming off of season 1 where the big issue was we had to plug a hole in the wall, and now all of a sudden we find out they got in again. So that whole little sequence of seeing the Titans in the distance reminds us, oh yeah, right, this is what we got to deal with. This is a big problem. What's of value in that particular sequence is how the people react to the Titans showing up in the wall. We know that someone gets sent out to give a message, but we also see the talk between some of the older scout troop members saying that things are only lost when someone stops fighting. And I think that's a really nice message, and we do get a nice echo to that at the end of the episode, which was admirable. But as we saw, he stopped fighting in the end. Regardless, it just sets up some nice themes that people as the survivors have to kind of adopt in this new world, or sorry, not new world, in this world that they live in. Other little standout moments within that whole sequence was just seeing all the cast of characters just kind of hanging out and being told to get ready to move out. That's a pretty cool little segment, and it was cool to see the characters again. We didn't get a lot of characterizations because this episode is pretty much just continuing from the previous season directly, so we don't get time to really see what the characters are about or get reminded what the characters are about. It just relies on us knowing about it. But it was still nice to see all of our side characters again, and it's nice to see Sasha and all of them, and Connie, as we saw Connie might have some significance in this arc because we saw that he is concerned about his village, and Raynor is there and he's going to be helping him out, so that's going to be pretty interesting. Next moment, and really my favorite moment, the Beast Titan. I also want to call him the Gorilla Titan. So man, the lighting on this guy looks so majestic. Like, look at that face, how it just looks so marvelous. He looks so kind and peaceful, and just to further that refinement, he can talk. How terrifying is that? And clearly we saw it was terrifying because the poor scout that was facing off against him was just speechless, without words. A Titan that can talk. So at this point, because we know Titan shifters are a thing, we can probably speculate this guy is most likely a Titan shifter and not just a normal Titan, because he did something that was really strange, right? He picked up the horse and tossed it at the guy who called it, and that was unfortunate. I feel really bad for the horse, but at that moment it was a character establishing moment for that Beast Titan that, hey, he doesn't, not only does he look weird, he thinks differently. This is a bigger problem. And so the segment with the Beast Titan is just by far, on top of being just like a godly vision from God because of the lighting on his face, it also is just one of the most tense and interesting sequences in the whole episode, because he picks out the maneuver gear and it's just like, yeah, this is a pretty novel idea, and he's talking to the guy, trying to like have a nice conversation with him, like, hey, what is this, what's going on, very interesting stuff. And we also see that he can command some of the other Titans, like he can tell one of them to stop, although the Titans still kind of maybe won't listen. Regardless, just seeing that and just seeing his command of those Titans, that's really interesting, and as a fan, you should get really excited about that, because that's kind of changing the rules up again, that there's a Titan that can talk. And if it is a person within that Titan, it's like they know, or not they know, it's possible to talk in Titan form. So will Eren talk in Titan form, like consistently, like an elegant speech? That would be nice. Regardless, that whole moment was really tense, and I felt really bad for that poor scout when he was just staring down the Titan. The Titan also made note that they have swords, and he made note, oh, you probably know about the weakness in the back of the neck. That's pretty cool. So overall, I just like the general respect that the Beast Titan exuded in that moment. I like how he talked to the man as an equal. And then after that, we go into the final moments. The moment the Beast Titan tells the guy that, or just says out loud, you guys can move now. What follows up is one of the most horrifying sequences. And you know, really, they didn't have to make it as long as they did. They could have shaved off 5 seconds there, but at that point, they're just doing it to remind you this is Attack on Titan. So the whole cinematography in the scene where the man is getting eaten and he's screaming and he's saying no, and then we see the final shot where it's his head popping out. It's like, yeah, wow, that just happened. And it's also, you know, he built himself up. He said, like, he reminded himself that people only lose when they give up, and he picked up his sword and he was ready to go, but then the Beast Titan just brought down the reality of the situation, that you will not be able to do anything when I take away your little toy. And what follows up is just one of the most brutal sequences. He's the poor guy, man, like, he had to go through the pain of being gnawed on for what seemed like an eternity until someone finally had the idea to pop his head off. That was brutal. They really made that guy suffer, because like we went through an episode where it was relatively tame and they're like, yeah, it's time to remind them what we're all about, and then they bring it all in. And yeah, I don't really know what else I can say about that moment besides just saying, like, yeah, it was pretty brutal. Poor guy. Anyway, Attack on Titan season 2, we're back in. Let's see what happens. Other little moments of note, the two scouts at the beginning talking about how there's no official reason for why all those people died. It was pretty powerful imagery, and it's just talking about this is how government works sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be shady as all heck. Next moment, we got to see Eren and Mikasa in a moment of Armin. The Eren and Mikasa moment, clearly just a moment between the two characters, reaffirming the love between the two characters, or just how much they care about each other. And after that point, yeah, those are pretty much the only two moments that really stood out at that point for me. But guys, this is it for the video. Let me know what you thought down below. And yeah, thanks for watching. Till next time, I hope you have a very, very great day.